Good afternoon. Today's video is all about malnutrition. The reason for a video about malnutrition in UK is currently I do believe we're in an economic collapse, and I do believe it's going to get worse, and I do think that inflation on food and things that you need is going to continue to get higher, and so that's why it's a video on malnutrition. So there's been quite a few articles in the news over the past year about malnutrition, and I found this one the other day from Glasgow Live, which says Glasgow child among 70 people with malnutrition turning up at city hospitals. Now, I do realise that malnutrition can be caused by illness as well in people, but this article specifically says NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde figures show people of all ages suffering from malnutrition as families struggle to put food on the table increases amid the cost of living crisis. So because of the current situation financially in the United Kingdom, there are people turning up at hospitals now suffering from malnutrition. And to go to your GP or to phone an ambulance or something like that and be admitted to hospital for malnutrition is quite serious. The article goes on to say nearly 70 people have ended up in hospital or A&E with malnutrition in the Glasgow area over the last year. One or more boys aged 4 or under were among 68 residents seen for the serious condition in 2022, Freedom of Information statistics show. In 2021, 76 people were in hospitals with malnutrition, according to NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde figures obtained by the local Democracy Reporting Service. The ages of the patients ranged from 4 and under to 85 and above over the past 2 years, with a total of 144 people affected, including 67 females and 77 males. Malnutrition arises when people don't get enough food or the right types of nutrients, and symptoms include being underweight and feeling tired. A Glasgow SNP spokesperson said, "No one should be forced to seek hospital treatment for malnutrition in 21st century Scotland." The statistics do not include the number of people going to GPs with the condition, so the figures will likely be much higher. The cost of living crisis means more people are struggling to put food on the table and afford electricity and gas to cook proper nutritious meals. More people have been turning to pantries which offer food for a heavily discounted price to get supplies. Mandy Morgan, Chief Executive of the Scottish Pantry Network, said, "Malnutrition is about not having enough of the right food." She pointed out, people who previously had to choose between eating and heating their homes can now do neither. Mandy said, "We are seeing a rise in people accessing the pantries every week. People are being squeezed. Gas and electricity is going up 50%. It is hitting everybody. Costs are increasing and interest rates are going up. There are people who have taken out mortgages and can't afford gas and electricity. Costs are increasing and interest rates are rising." The article goes on to tell you that the pantries have bases in Parkhead and Rochasey, among other places, and they distribute surplus food from Fairshare and have about 300 people visiting every week. So the pantries also don't just hand out food parcels or let people buy food for cheaper, they also show people how to cook, some of them, and distribute things like slow cookers and tin openers and things. The next part of the article goes on to ask an SNP spokesperson what they think of the situation and a Tory party spokesperson what they think of the situation. And interestingly, neither of them come up with any solutions. All both of them do is blame each other for the problems that people are having. You would think that being as serious as it is, they might say, party politics aside, we will work together to come up with something that's going to help people. But neither of them did that. It just became an argument over who was the worst politician. And the final part goes on to say, an NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde spokesperson said NHS GGC routinely, both in acute services and primary care, assess individual patients using the malnutrition screening tool, or MUST tool, which considers body mass index, percentage weight loss in the past 6 months, and disease effect. The MUST score will inform the ongoing care planning for individual patients, along with information on usual food and drinking patterns. The NHS website said malnutrition is a serious condition that happens when your diet does not contain the right amount of nutrients. As well as undernutrition, it can also include overnutrition, which can lead to obesity. And that's something that a lot of people probably don't think of. If we say malnutrition, most people think of an image of a third world country, a child there suffering, really skinny, almost skin and bones, and maybe kwashiorkor. We don't think of people who are obese. But that is a good point that they've made there, because if you think about money, when you go to the shop, you can buy really cheap food that's not got a great quality. It's not been made with very many nice ingredients for a lot cheaper than you can buy fresh fruit and vegetables in a lot of cases. And that's where the malnutrition comes in for obese people. They eat lots of high calorie sort of junk food, which has a lot of trans fats, but it doesn't have a lot of other nutrients that they actually need. So their body continues to tell them that they need nutrients, and so they continue to eat that kind of food because they don't buy anything else, they can't afford anything else, or they're not able to cook things which take a bit longer and a bit more preparation to cook, and so they actually become malnourished as well, even though they're obese. So I did find quite a few articles. There was another one in the BBC News, cost of living, GP concerns over rise in signs of malnutrition. And they go on to say that a group of GPs is concerned that the cost of living crisis is making people rely on cheaper processed foods, so they're not getting the vitamins and minerals that they do need, and it causes both underweight people and overweight people, and it causes a range of symptoms like fatigue, tiredness, obviously vitamin deficiencies and things like that. So they're seeing malnutrition at GP surgeries, as well as being admitted to accident and emergency, and just in general being admitted to hospital for other illnesses which may be linked to malnutrition as well. So here's a little bit from which says 1 in 10 consumers in Scotland are skipping meals, and financial pressures are leading people to make choices that could be harmful to their health. As well as not having enough to eat, malnutrition can be a result of not eating the right things. According to the Scottish Health Survey, 2/3 of adults in Scotland were overweight in 2021. Malnutrition affects 1 in 3 people all over the world. I would think it was probably more than that with all of the financial struggles that are happening all over the world just now. But it causes stunted growth, so a person who would be too short for his or her age, wasting, a person who is too thin for his or her height, and obesity, a person who's overweight. Symptoms in children would include not growing or putting on weight at the expected rate of growth, changes in behaviour such as being unusually irritable, slow or anxious, low energy levels, tiring more easily than other children, so obviously see your GP if you're worried about your child. And other symptoms for adults and children might include reduced appetite, lack of interest in food and drink, feeling tired all the time, feeling weaker, getting ill and taking a longer time to recover, wounds taking a long time to heal, poor concentration, feeling cold most of the time, and low mood or depression. If you look at those symptoms, a lot of them are symptoms of vitamin deficiency. If you look up the likes of vitamin B deficiency, a lot of those symptoms would be in that as well. So this says, if not treated, chronically malnourished children become stunted or short for their age. This affects a child's ability to learn, and by age 5 becomes irreversible. If you think about that and let it sink in, that's truly awful. Children with chronic malnutrition quickly slip to acute malnutrition when they get sick. A child with severe acute malnutrition is 9 times more likely to die than a well-nourished child. And we've all seen this. If you have a child who's particularly skinny, as soon as they get sick and they stop eating, they lose weight a lot quicker than a child who's of a healthy weight, and it takes them longer to get better. So if you or any of your family members or someone that you care for has any of these symptoms and you think it might be related to poor diet or undernutrition, then I would urge you to see your GP. There's lots of things that they can do to help you, and they'll be able to check your BMI against their MUST tool and see what they can do. So following are a few pages of the MUST screening tool that they use when they're assessing you for malnutrition. So I've put these on just so you can have a look and see what kind of scores and things they give for what weights. So there's a range of treatments for malnutrition, but the first is usually dietary advice if you're not severely malnutritioned, which would be to eat fortified foods that are high in calories and protein, snack between meals, and have drinks that contain lots of calories. Now, depending on the severity of malnutrition, you need to be really careful, not just with children, but with adults, when you're rehydrating them and refeeding them again after a period of not eating properly or not eating at all. They can't just be given a normal diet immediately. If it's very bad, they need special care in hospital. And the reason for this is something called refeeding syndrome. Refeeding syndrome is caused by sudden shifts in the electrolytes that help your body metabolize food. Certain conditions may increase your risk for this condition, including anorexia, alcohol use disorder, and obviously malnutrition or starvation. Refeeding is the process of reintroducing food after malnourishment or starvation. Refeeding syndrome is a serious and potentially fatal condition that can occur during refeeding. It's caused by sudden shifts in the electrolytes that help your body metabolize food. The incidence of refeeding syndrome is difficult to determine as there isn't a standard definition. Refeeding syndrome can affect anyone, however, it typically follows a period of malnourishment, fasting, extreme dieting, famine, starvation. Hypophosphatemia is a common feature of refeeding syndrome. Other metabolic changes can also occur. These include abnormal sodium and fluid levels, changes in fat, glucose, or protein metabolism, thiamine deficiency, hypomagnesemia, and hypokalemia, low potassium. Sorry if I've mispronounced any of those, but they're quite difficult to pronounce. So as you can see, refeeding syndrome can cause sudden and fatal complications. These are some of the complications and symptoms listed here. So it can be quite a serious thing. So if someone has not had proper nutrition for a long time, or they've not had any nutrition for 5 days or so, or proper nutrition for 10 or more days, then you need to be really careful when you're refeeding them and rehydrating them again. Risk factors for refeeding syndrome are if you have a body mass index under 16, if you've lost more than 15% of your body weight in the past 3 to 6 months, if you've consumed little to no food or well below the calories needed for the past 10 or more consecutive days, or if a blood test has revealed your serum phosphate, potassium or magnesium levels are low, then you need to be really careful when you're starting to eat and drink properly again. And I'm sure we all know the best way to not get malnutritioned is to prevent it completely. To do this, you need to eat a variety of foods, so plenty of fruit and vegetables, plenty of starchy foods such as bread, rice, potatoes and pasta, some milk and dairy foods or non-dairy alternatives, and some sources of protein such as meat, fish, eggs and beans. So it's suggested that we have 5+ portions of fruit and vegetables a day, 3 to 4 portions of carbohydrates, beans, pulses, fish, eggs, meat and other proteins 2 to 3 portions a day, and dairy or alternatives 2 to 3 portions a day. So obviously the amount of calories that you need personally would depend on whether you're male or female, an adult or a child, and if you're very active you would need more. If you're a smaller person you might need less than a big muscly guy who works out all day every day. So it depends on you as a person, but a good indicator is to use your hand. So if you use your hand to measure the size of portions that you need, then it's more individual to you. So this is a good visual indicator of what a child would be expected to have at each meal. And this would be a good indicator of what an adult would be expected to have spread out across a day. So in order to prevent malnutrition, we need to look into ways which we can manage to get enough fruit and veg into our diet, even if it's frozen. That would still count. We need starchy carbohydrates such as porridge, rice, potatoes, pasta, those kind of things. We also need a range of good proteins like eggs, which are very versatile, lentils, they're also very versatile and a vegetarian option. Sausages can be a type of cheaper protein that more people would be able to afford. Tuna or other types of fish, they can be fresh or canned. And obviously minced beef is very versatile. It can make all sorts of different types of meals, and you can bulk it out a little bit as well for your needs. So we also need dairy in our diet, or dairy alternatives, so things like milk, the wee yogurts and petit fours that you get, or cheese, they're really good for children. So they would help you get calcium and vitamin D, which we need for our immune systems and obviously strong bones and teeth. Another way to prevent malnutrition would be to take vitamins and supplements, so a good multivitamin. And don't forget your vitamin Bs, like B12 is an important one. Vitamin D3 is also very good, as I said, for your immunity and growth. And if you're taking D3, you would need K2 to make it effective. And vitamin C is also needed so that you can prevent things like scurvy. There are also nutritional supplements such as Pediasure for children, which is a drink that you can make up like a milkshake. It has minerals and nutrients that they might need. And there's Ensure drinks like that, which are for adults, which are also milkshake or juice based ones, which have vitamins and minerals added so that you can have it as a supplement to your diet. Or if you're not able to eat at all, you can use that as a meal replacement. If you are suffering from malnutrition and you go to your GP, they might actually suggest getting these on prescription, so you can also look into that if you need to. So while I was trying to have a think of solutions to the problem of malnutrition here, I remembered that some of the butchers here will give out bags of free bones. If you go and ask, they'll give you certain bones that you can bring home and make into a bone broth, which is actually really good for you. Bone broth is rich in minerals that help build and strengthen your bones. It also contains many other healthy nutrients including vitamins, amino acids and essential fatty acids. So if your local butcher gives away bags of free bones, that might be a really good idea to get extra nutrients, and I'll post a link to a website that has a good recipe on it. The other thing which I remembered and thought might help some people was that Tesco used to do a thing where they had like a box at the fruit section and it had all different fruits in it, and if you were in the shop with your children you could take pieces of fruit and give them to your children to eat as you were going round the shop. So that's always a way to get fresh fruit and veg into your children, and it could actually save them from malnutrition. And who's to say that you couldn't pick up one yourself while you were there if they're still doing that? The other ideas which I've found quite a few of, and I'll post below the video, are the food pantry networks and the food banks. and all these kind of places, community food groups and growing initiatives which might help people out. Obviously, now that we're coming into spring, the other thing I thought of was foraging. We can get extra nutrients through foraging, so I'm going to post some links of some good sites that have got lots of information on foraging in the UK, and if you've got any better links, please post them in the comments for people as well. I know that not everyone's able, but if you are able and you've got the space, then I really think it's a great idea if you can try and grow some of your own food as well. It means that you're getting fresh fruit and vegetables, and that's part of your nutritional needs. And I know I've said it many times before, but if you can afford to, please start putting some long life shelf stable foods by for yourself or your family. It just means that if it comes to it and you can't get enough nutrients, you can always use that stock to top up with yourself or your family's needs, and it might save you malnourishment, who knows. It goes without saying the importance of food and good nutrition. The most extreme cases of not having food are of course starving to death. If we think of the financial situation in the UK, Europe and America today, many people can't afford to eat properly. For thousands of children across these countries, the only meal they get is the meal that they get in school each day. At the weekend and on holidays, they get nothing. Eating at home in some countries has become unreliable. For growing children, suffering malnutrition causes them to be smaller, weaker, and affects their eyesight and their IQ. So although people will say we're very lucky over here still, and we're far from starvation, people are still really struggling to afford quality and nutritious food, and this is what the problem is. We need to find ways of helping ourselves and our children and our families through this. So please, if you've got any ideas, post them in the comments, things that you think might be able to help people who are struggling to get the right amount of food, or just even enough quality food for them to actually be healthy. Remember to care for each other, help each other and love each other, and above all, pray to God for help through this. Thanks for watching, and hopefully if we all work together, help each other with different comments and different suggestions that we've used or that we think might help, we can get each other through this. Take care.